It was a crisp Tuesday morning when the stench hit me like a punch to the gut. I hadn't even opened my front door yet, but the sharp, chemical reek was already seeping through the cracks. 6 months ago, a car accident left me in a wheelchair, so early mornings had become my routine. But today, something was so wrong, saw. My Sir VYC dog, buddy, since the two. He whimpered, his paws skittering backward from the door like it was cursed. My heart sank. Whatever was out there wasn't good. I cracked the door open, and the smell slammed into me, so strong it made my eyes water. There was me wheelchair ramp, my lifeline to the outside world, soaked in some VY dark liquid. The wood glistened unnaturally, puddles of the stuff pooling at the base like a toxic moat. Buddy took one sniff and started hacking, his little body shaking. I yanked him back inside and slammed the door, my hands trembling. That's when I saw it, a note taped to the doorframe, written in that prim, loopy handwriting I'd grown to loathe. Your ramp attracts pests, it read. HOA policy requires immediate pest management. Problem solved. Linda Harper, HOA president. I stared at those words, my blood boiling. Linda Harper, the self-crowned dictator of our quiet little neighborhood, had just declared war on my independence. And she was so proud of it. Let me back up. 3 weeks earlier, I'd finally gotten my ramp installed. It was a hard-won VY Tory after months of scraping together money, not VY gating permits, and hiring a contractor who knew every ADA guideline by heart. The ramp was modest but perfect clean, sturdy, painted to blend seamlessly with my house. For the first time since the accident, I could roll out my front door without begging for help. It was freedom, plain and simple. But freedom, apparently, was too much for Linda. She showed up 48 hours after the ramp went up, standing on my porch in her crisp blazer, clutching a clipboard like it was a scepter. With a smile so fake it could have been plastic, she informed me my ramp was an eyesore and a clear violation of neighborhood aesthetic standards. I stayed calm, explained it was ADA protected, and even showed her the permits. She squinted at the papers like they were written in hieroglyphics, then snapped that federal laws didn't trump HOA rules. You have 30 days to remove that monstrosity, she said. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Right in her face. Her expression soured, and I knew I'd made an enemy. For 2 weeks, Linda waged a one-woman crusade against me. Violation notices flooded my mailbox for nonsense. My grass was too long, by a fraction of an inch. My mailbox was misaligned. My wheelchair tracks and my private driveway were damaging common areas. She went door to door, preaching about how my ramp would attract rats, tank property values, and somehow endanger the entire neighborhood. Most neighbors just nodded politely and shut their doors, but I could tell Linda was unraveling. Her usual bully tactics weren't working, and she hated it. Then came that Tuesday morning. The chemical assault on my ramp wasn't just petty, it was dangerous. Buddy was still coughing, and my own throat burned from the fumes. I dialed 911, my voice shaking as I explained the situation. The dispatcher didn't hesitate, especially when I mentioned Buddy's breathing issues. Within an hour, my front yard was a circus, police cars, a fire department hazmat team, and animal control. They cordoned off the ramp, took samples of the liquid, and snapped photos. The fire captain, a no-nonsense guy with a clipboard of his own, told me Buddy and I had to evacuate for a few hours while they tested the substance and aired out the area. Officer Daniels, who was running point, asked if I had any suspects. I handed him Linda's note and spilled the whole story, her threats, her notices, her obsession with my ramp. His eyebrows shot up. We'll look into this, he said, tucking the note into an EVY Denke bag. 2 days later, Officer Daniels called with news that made my jaw drop. The liquid was a commercial-grade pesticide, so potent it was illegal for residential use. It required special licenses and hazmat gear to handle. Whoever sprayed it had used enough to sicken people and pets alike. But the real bombshell? My neighbor's doorbell camera across the street had caught Linda in the act. At 3 a.m., there she was clear as day, decked out in rubber gloves, hauling a professional sprayer, dousing my ramp like she was exorcising a demon. She'd even paused to tape her smug little note to my door. When the cops showed up at Linda's house with the footage, she didn't even try to deny it. According to Daniels, she doubled down, insisting she was protecting the neighborhood from my vermin-attracting ramp. She was stunned when they told her she'd committed not just vandalism, but a soft federal crime saw. See, Linda had made a catastrophic mistake. By targeting an ADA-protected accessibility feature, she'd VYOLAT my CIVYL rights. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore, this was a federal case. Word spread fast. A disability rights lawyer reached out after catching wind of the story. She explained that Linda's stunt wasn't just criminal mischief. It was deliberate interference with my access to my home, carrying hefty penalties. Then the local news got hold of it. HOA president allegedly poisons disabled residents' wheelchair ramp. Wasn't the headline Linda expected to see. Suddenly, her reign of petty terror was under a microscope. Neighbors started sharing their own horror stories. Turns out, Linda had a history. 2 years back, she'd ordered an elderly neighbor, Mr. Thompson, to remove a handrail he'd installed after hip surgery. A week later, he fell on his steps, broke his wrist, and needed emergency surgery. The HOA board, realizing they could be liable for Linda's actions, held an emergency meeting. They ousted her as president, issued a public apology, and promised to audit her past decisions. But Linda wasn't done. Even as the EVY Denke piled up, she hired a hotshot lawyer and claimed she was just enforcing community standards. Her defense crumbled when prosecutors revealed her browser history. Searches for strongest wood-damaging chemicals and pesticides that cause wood rot, all dated days before the incident. The federal charges hit hard. Violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, and illegal use of restricted pesticides. Each carried fines and potential prison time. Her arraignment was a spectacle. Linda strutted into court like she was the VY Tim, but the judge wasn't buying it. When she tried to argue she was maintaining standards, the judge shut her down, reminding her that federal law trumps HOA nonsense. The prosecution laid out their case: the footage, the chemical analysis, her note, her search history. Linda's claim that she didn't know the ramp was protected only dug her deeper. Ignorance of CIVYL rights law isn't a defense, the prosecutor snapped, especially for someone who claims to know housing rules. Faced with a mountain of EVY Denke and the threat of years in federal prison, Linda's lawyer pushed for a plea deal. The sentence was a gut punch: 18 months in federal prison, due law $50,000 in fines and restitution, and a permanent ban from any HOA role. When the judge read the verdict, Linda's face was a mask of shock and fury. She tried to interrupt, babbling about a misunderstanding, but her lawyer clamped a hand on her arm. As the bailiff cuffed her and led her away, she locked eyes with me. That glare, pure, unfiltered rage said it all. Even now, she thought all I saw was the problem, not her own cruelty or ignorance. I'll never forget that moment, watching her realize the empire she'd built on petty power was gone. But it wasn't just about her. It was about every neighbor she'd bullied, every rule she'd twisted, every life she'd made harder. For the first time in years, our neighborhood felt free. Now, I want to hear from you. Was Linda's punishment fair, or did she deserve worse? Should HOAs have the power to challenge accessibility features, or are they just breeding grounds for petty tyrants like Linda? Have you ever dealt with an HOA horror story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story got your blood pumping, and subscribe for more real-life dramas. Let's keep this conversation going.